body and mind in order to access a higher awareness that reflects an understanding of Dharma. Dharma usually implies following some type of yoga practice or sadhana. We could say that yoga is the practice of Dharma, and Dharma is the principle or worldview behind yoga. We cannot separate the study of yoga traditions from that of Dharma traditions. These two related approaches are related approaches of examining the same teachings. Yoga is often called Yoga Dharma in Hindu thought. Yoga Dharma relates to Moksha Dharma, the highest of the Dharmas, Purusharthas, or goal of life, the freedom of the spirit, and liberation from all ignorance, bondage, and sorrow, what is called Kaivalya and Nirvana. There are many traditional definitions of yoga, many in the Sanskrit text. These revolve around yoga as control of the mind, the practice of meditation, concentration, equanimity, or samadhi, or related means like asana and pranayama for preparing the body and mind for meditation. In this regard, we cannot separate the study of yoga from the study of meditation. Yoga in the broader sense of the term refers to the whole range of practices, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, ritual, mantra, meditation, performed in a systematic manner in order to develop the inner knowledge, a science of self-realization. We have traditional branches of yoga as jnana yoga, yoga of knowledge, bhakti yoga, yoga of devotion, karma yoga, yoga of action, mantra yoga, maya yoga, kundalini yoga, and others. Yoga is as old as the Vedic tradition. We could say that Veda is the knowledge and yoga is the practice. While the term yoga is not common in older texts like the Rig Veda, the Rig Yuj, in the basis of yoga, is very common. There's a verse in the Rig Veda, Yunjante manasa ute yunjante dio, vipra viprasya brihato vipashtitaha. Seers of the vast illumined seers yogically control the mind and the di, or the buddhi. This verse is also there in the Upanishads, Shvetashvatara, explaining yoga. The older Vedic text, Rig Veda, start out with mantra yoga as the basis of yoga, as an Om and the Gayatri mantra. And we also find that also in Buddhist traditions, the mantra yoga is a very primary practice, and along with Om is the very famous term Nama, Namo, Namas. And that Nama has resounded throughout all of Asia, whether with Hindu deities or Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, that reverence of the mantra, that reverence and dedication, which is also the Bhakti Yoga, has gone everywhere, and it's even entered into the other languages besides the Sanskritic. Yoga is a more common term in Upanishads, Gita, Puranas, yet there are many synonyms for yoga. Remember, the whole Vedic Sanskritic tradition has numerous synonyms, so we can never limit something to one term only. So terms like tapas, swadhyaya, mantra, dhyana, all these terms are very common even in the most ancient texts. And even the Vedic idea of the yajna, or the sacrifice, the sacred action, is inwardly an offering of the prana, vak, manas, speech, prana, and mind to the divine fire, divine light, the Agni within, or which the Buddhas also call Jnana-Agni. Yoga is also one of the 6 schools or Shat Darshanas of the Vedic thought. And unfortunately, some people tend to reduce yoga to Yoga Darshana only. Yoga Darshana, Yoga Sutras is a very important teaching. It is Sankhya Yoga. There are many other forms of yoga. It is a key and important text, but we must remember that yoga pervades all the darshanas. Uttaramimamsa, which includes the Upanishadic thought, is including Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Prana Yoga is all there. Even the Purvamimamsa with the ritual is a kind of karma yoga. And it's interesting that in the Vedic thought, the founder of yoga is not Patanjali, but an interesting earlier figure called Hiranyagarbha. There's no Hiranyagarbha Darshana text left, but Hiranyagarbha in that yoga is very common in Mahabharata. And in earlier texts, Patanjali is actually a bit later figure. We also have many prominent Shaivite yoga traditions with the Nath and Siddha yogas. In fact, most of the Himalayan yogis, at least in the Hindu tradition, are Shaivites, and Shiva is the great lord of yoga. Yogeshwara. Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, Kundalini Yoga are not, and Shaivite traditions. Vaishnava Yoga is mainly the Bhakti Yoga, and Krishna himself is Yoga Avatara, or the Avatar of Yoga. Gita itself is a great yoga teachings. All Vedantic and Tantric teachings have their yoga, and they are all ways of developing higher awareness. And yoga has always been adapted to various philosophical principles. Yet all systems of yoga begin with dharmic principles and practices, yamas and niyamas, ahimsa, satya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, and so on. Yoga is also a common term in Buddhist teachings, notably Yogacara, Vijnanavada, one of the four main schools of classical Buddhist philosophy. And Tantric Buddhism, specifically Vajrayana Buddhism, has all the secrets that you'll find in Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, Siddha Yoga, the Nath Yogis. There's even the idea that the Nath Yogis have also been to Tibet. And I was personally at Mount Kailas, and there is the shrine also for Gorakhnath, the founder of the main teacher of the Nath Yogis. And yet, Buddhism has all aspects of yoga, particularly when we define yoga as mantra and meditation. The Tibetan Anuttara Yoga has 6 limbs and is a kind of Raja Yoga. I have great respect for it because it starts out with Pratyahara, and Pratyahara is the real foundation of all inner yoga practices. We can define Buddhism as primarily a form of jnana yoga, or yoga of knowledge, with its inquiry, vichara, meditation, and yet there is also a lot of bhakti yoga in Buddhism, whether it's Lotus Sutra, Amitabha, worship of Tara, the Pure Land Buddhism. In fact, I think that is the most popular Buddhism in the east of Asia in any case. And we find a tremendous spirit of bhakti in Tibet. In fact, when you see these monks and people doing the full prostration as they go along on their yatras, that is the expression of the highest devotion or bhakti. And curiously, Buddhism does have its rituals, and we find as far as Japan, the Buddhist fire rituals, worship of the Sun Buddha, the Buddhist Homa, which can also be defined as karma yoga. Buddhism has also adapted the mantra yoga, the bija mantras, and many of the bija mantras, Om, Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Ah Hum, are there, and also the whole mysticism of the Sanskrit alphabet relative to the chakras, nadis, kundalini, and also, like all the Vedic schools, Buddhism, all of yogas naturally rest on dharmic principles, if not being a monk, at least following as a layperson the dharmic principles of life. So overall, we see that the Hindu and Buddhist yoga teachings use the same types of practices. Mantra, meditation, pranayama, even asana, they have the same basic general needs of subtle body, and so forth, even when the philosophies differ in a significant manner, which they can. And at the same time, we must remember that in all the Vedic, all the Dharmic traditions, it is always held that the highest truth is beyond speech and mind, beyond all concepts, and it must be experienced directly and known in pure consciousness, silence, direct awareness, nirvana, moksha, kaivalya, whatever you wish to call it. So the practices are the same, the philosophies are in some respect different, but the ultimate goal of going beyond the limitations of body and mind to the pure awareness has been there. We've also seen that yoga has spread with the Dharmic traditions. We find yoga throughout the world today, and it's often commonly practiced along with the Buddhism. And yet, we also see that the yoga has become a bit physical. That's not the yoga we're emphasizing. We're emphasizing the deeper Raja Yoga. There's also been some scholarships of yoga, and some scholars have tried to say that there is some yoga tradition in itself, or there's a yoga tradition that's beyond any tradition of India, that's global, that's whatever. The point I would like to raise is there is no yoga tradition apart from Dharma traditions. We cannot separate the two. And just as the Hindu-Buddhist traditions share the yoga, they also share the Dharma. And they are common yoga Dharma systems with different philosophies. The minds of living beings are so different approaches are necessary. The inner consciousness, the inner being, whatever you want to call it, is one. And I've also found, studying some of the Buddhist texts, that the Buddhist texts are not only sharing the background of yoga, which we find in the Vedic text, they're also sharing the background of Ayurvedic medicine, down to specific herbs and therapies, descriptions of doshas, aspects of the physical body and the subtle body. They're also sharing the Jyotish, or the Vedic astrology, which is the basis of the Tibetan astrology, just as the Ayurveda is the basis of the Tibetan medicine. They also share common iconography, common forms of temple worship, and of course the common usage of the Sanskrit language. I also, as an Ayurvedic practitioner, like to define Ayurveda as the yogic system of medicine, because it's a complete system of internal, external medicine, diagnosis, and treatment, and also as the Dharmic tradition. And we find a complete integration of Buddhism, Indian Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, with this whole structure of knowledge we can call yoga, dharma, so many things. And even in the Vedic tradition, you're free to interpret the Vedas as you like. There are many different Vedic texts. There are many different points of view in the Vedas. Even the Vedic compilation that has been left is the 28th. It is not the first. It is not the last. The Vedas are said to be unlimited. And the foundation of Veda is to teach Dharma. Foundation of Veda is also to take us to yoga, to higher knowledge. Over time, there are always historical, cultural, political, philosophical differences. But I think that behind that, we can find this greater Dharmic culture that includes Buddhism, Vedanta, Yoga, Ayurveda, all these different things. So I think it is important for Sanchi University to not only look at the interface of Dharma and Dhamma in all forms, but also related teachings of yoga, Ayurveda, all the aspects of Dharmic teachings, not simply for spiritual practices, but for addressing the whole of life and on right living on all levels, all these integrated systems. And if we begin to do this, we can find a much broader level of integration and communication between Dharma and Dhamma traditions. We can take them to areas of collaboration like physical and psychological health and well-being, as well as social harmony and the whole science of consciousness. Reclaiming Dharmic traditions and reclaiming yoga traditions is the same basic process. They work together and support each other in a transformative manner. Their goal is to eliminate suffering, to promote the supreme ananda, or the highest bliss of pure consciousness, mahasukha, as the Buddhists say. And that legacy can be shared with all humanity. That Dharmic knowledge can be extended into a whole sacred or spiritual science that covers all of life. And we can teach at Sanchi University these subjects in a very practical way of daily living, from breathing and thinking to greater awareness and ultimate social harmony. And finally, in closing, I would like to say we need to preserve these great cultural and spiritual traditions of India and Tibet and all the Buddhist countries as well. It is the greatest imperative of intellectual and spiritual thought in the world, and today it is an incomparable, vast, experiential, meditative tradition for all humanity. It exists here. It is being shared worldwide. Not everyone worldwide has the ability to understand, even if you can teach them. These teachings have to be revived, and we would it again here. They are also the foundation of the countries, the social harmony, the justice, the identity, so that you're not overwhelmed by these forces of simply materialism and technology, but can work through them and use them at the level of a greater spiritual science, so that this knowledge cannot simply once more revive and transform this greater area of India, but can also transform the planet as a whole, which is the need of the hour. So Sanchi should produce, we could almost say, these type of yogic, dharmic missionaries, as it were, for those to spread this knowledge to the world as a whole and set up similar teaching centers, practices, books, so that this knowledge again can be brought for the benefit of everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trolley, for your encyclopedic review. Very short time. Thank you. Again, coordinator will introduce Dr. Rajeev. Dr. Rajeev.
So our next learned orator is Reverend Dr. Sramana Siri. He is Executive Director, Medical Consultant, Lord Eminent in Buddhist Scripture, specialist in 10 languages. So I seek your attention in these lines actually. In the year 2000, for 9 months he walked the entire Great Wall of China, creating a world record. Yet he had time to finish his postgraduate degree in Christian theology at Oxford University. After 4 years of research, Reverend Dr. Sramana is ever active during his in Malaysia and Singapore and has been to India 48 times in different capacities. By his 48th monkhood anniversary, his next effort in 4 years is to walk around the world for peace. I like to invite Dr. Sramana Siri. Please come and present your paper.
Professor Rao, the chair, Dr. Lokesh Chandra, Swamiji, colleagues, friends. Buddhist scientific vision as a culture goes beyond science. That's my topic. In his first sermon, the Buddha admonished Vidya Udapadi, which simply means science arose in me. That led to the life of his being. His discovery is thus a para-scientific middle way, the outcome of the rejection of the extremes of pain and pleasure, eternity and nihilism. From a scientific view, it implies a self-realization, abhisambuddho, that rejects superstition and opens the doors to the deathless by being down to earth and not up in the sky. Seldom did Gautama delve in metaphysical discourse, asking not even to be attached to the Dhamma, Dhamma vipaha Dhamma. Dhamma entails various meanings, as most of you know, all that which are not to be attached to equally, as in the Dhamma we find Ma Samano no Garu. Respect to a teacher should not merely be a valid means of knowledge to accept whatever he or she teaches. This was a blow to the accepted surrender to the Guru by being submissive, found in Sanatana Dharma, followed by almost all traditions before the Buddha. Buddha's progression is abound in the Diga Madhyama discourses poignantly in Sutta Nipada, where he rejects outrightly all views as ditthis, gurus, methods, and systems of thought. He maintains a believer cannot make a realistic judgment if he is attached to his Dhamma or even to the very Buddha himself. Dhamma is a means to an end and not the end itself. Faith that leads to blindness was not his suggestion, but rational faith, akaranti saddha, was the logical point of consistence, reasonable. In the works of Madhyamikas and Vinnaga and Dharmakirti, it's crystal clear that there is no room for authority, mere acceptance, hallucinations and optic illusions. The Blessed One, the ace rationalist, as Radhakrishnan said, stood for reason, neither for mysticism nor for metaphysics. For claims made by high gurus, his response was simple logic. Beliefs and practices by mere tradition or authority was not his breed. Such notions were refuted by common sense propositions. Once, an ascetic with jhanic powers confronted him, "How will you cross the river?" As the ascetic wanted to fly across by his powers. To him, the great humanist Buddha responded, "I will pay the ferryman a penny out of compassion for his family life." In actual fact, Buddha's humors were incisive when it came to religious nonsense. The culture he planted in Indian soils against delusion and domination, that even in the dark ages of the Buddhist history in India, the impact of the rational Dhamma was felt in all directions of greater India and extended culture. The above mentioned boatman's incident should be a point to ponder by modern meditation enthusiastic devotees and organizations, including Vipassana and monastics, that compassion can override mundane psychic business, for they have not recognized the empowerment of the Dhamma. A right-thinking monk is given the space to doubt as to whether the Blessed One is enlightened or not. What more about gurus, masters, rinpoches, etc.? As a matter of fact, modern-day monastics has overlooked the prohibition of worshipping relics of the Buddha and the Shravakas, as well said